Commander Zara Vex stood on the bridge of her ship, looking down at the small blue planet below. Her tall frame cast a shadow across the metal floor as she watched the world spin slowly in the darkness of space. Her skin glowed with a soft silver. Light, the way it always did when she was thinking hard about something important. The planet was called Earth by the creatures who lived there. Humans, they called themselves. Zara had studied them for months now, watching their cities from far. Above, learning their languages and reading their simple radio signals. They were an interesting species, she had to admit, but they were still so young and primitive compared to her own people. The Altarians had ruled 3-star systems for over 1,000 years. They were tall and graceful, with skin that changed, colors like living crystal. Their minds were sharp and powerful, able to speak to each other without words. They had built ships that could cross the galaxy in days and cities that floated among the stars like jewels. On the other hand, had only just learned to leave their own planet. Their ships were slow and clumsy, held together with metal. And fire. They still fought wars with each other over pieces of land and resources. They were emotional and unpredictable, nothing like the calm and logical Altarians, but they had something that caught Zara's attention. Despite all their problems and limitations, they kept trying. They kept reaching for the stars, even when it seemed impossible. There was something almost charming about their stubborn hope that today would be the first time an Altarian and a human would meet face to face. The human governments had sent their best diplomat to negotiate with their people. Zara had been chosen to represent the Altarian Empire because of her skill in dealing with primitive species. She had done this many times before with other worlds. The door to the bridge opened with a soft hiss. Dr. Kine Tao, her chief medical officer, walked over to where she stood. His skin was a deep blue color, showing his curiosity about the days. "Events. The human ship has docked, Commander," he said in their musical language. "The diplomat is ready to come aboard." Zara nodded and touched the communication panel. "Send him to conference room 7. I will meet him there in 10 minutes. She took one last look at Earth through the great window of the bridge. Such a small world to hold so many dreams. Then she turned and walked toward the meeting that would change everything, though she did not know it yet. Conference room 7 was one of the most beautiful spaces on the ship. The walls were made of a special crystal that showed images of Altarian home worlds. The air smelled of the silver flowers that grew in their capital city. Everything was designed to impress visitors and remind them of Altarian power and culture. Zara entered the room and took her place at the head of the long table. She wore her formal commander's robes, deep purple with silver trim that matched her rank. Her skin had settled into a calm white color that showed she was in control of her emotions. The door opened again, and the human diplomat walked in. Zara had seen pictures of humans before, but meeting one in person was different. He was shorter than she expected, maybe coming up to her shoulder. His skin was a warm brown color that did not change or glow. His hair was dark and slightly messy, as if he had been running his hands through it. He wore a simple black suit that looked formal but not fancy. What surprised her most were his eyes. They were bright and alert, full of curiosity and intelligence. When he looked at her, she felt like he was really seeing her, not just her rank or her species. "Commander Vex," he said, and his voice was deeper than she expected. "I'm Jake Morrison. It's an honor to meet you." He held out his hand in the human custom of greeting. Zara looked at it for a moment, then carefully reached out and shook it. His skin was warm and rough compared to her smooth crystal surface. The touch lasted only a second, but she felt a strange little spark of energy that she decided must be static electricity. "Welcome aboard the Stellar Wind, Mr. Morrison," she said in his language. She had learned English perfectly, though speaking it felt strange, after the flowing sounds of Alterian. "Please sit." Jake took the chair across from her and looked around the room with obvious interest. "This is incredible," he said. "The way the walls show those landscapes, the way everything seems to glow with its own light. Is this what your home world looks like?" His direct questions caught her off guard. Most species she dealt with were either too afraid or too impressed to ask personal questions so quickly. They usually spent the first hour talking about politics and trade agreements. "Some of it," she said carefully. "These are images from several of our colony worlds. We have adapted them to many different environments." "That must take incredible skill," Jake said. "Learning to live in so many different places with different gravity and atmosphere. Humans are still figuring out how to live on our own moon." There was no shame in his voice when he admitted human limitations. Most primitive species tried to make themselves sound more advanced than they really were. Jake seemed comfortable with what his people could and could not do. "Your species is very young," Zara said. "In time, you may develop such abilities." Jake smiled, and the expression changed his whole face. "Maybe, or maybe we'll find our own way of doing things. Humans have a habit of taking the long way around problems." They spent the next hour discussing the basic terms of first contact. Jake wanted to establish trade relationships and cultural exchanges. He asked intelligent questions about Alterian technology and offered human art, music, and literature in return. "What could we possibly want with human creative works?" Zara asked. She did not mean to sound rude, but the question seemed obvious to her. Jake did not look offended. Instead, he pulled out a small device and touched its surface. Music began to play, soft and beautiful. It was not like Alterian music, which was mathematical and perfect. This had rough edges and surprising changes that somehow made it more moving. "This was written by a human who lived 300 years ago," Jake said. "He was poor and sick most of his life, but he wrote music that still makes people cry and laugh and dream. We think there's value in showing each other how we see the universe, even if our technology is different." Zara listened to the music and felt something stir inside her that she did not expect. There was something raw and honest about it that Alterian art, for all its technical perfection, sometimes lacked. "Interesting," she said, and her skin flickered just slightly toward a warmer color as the day went on. They moved from the conference room to the observation deck for dinner. Jake seemed fascinated by everything he saw, asking questions about how the ship worked and what life was like for Alterians. His curiosity was genuine and intelligent, not the simple wonder she was used to from primitive species. When he asked about Alterian families and relationships, Zara found herself talking about things she rarely discussed with outsiders. She told him about the loneliness of command, about how Alterian society valued logic and control above emotional connection. "That sounds efficient," Jake said, "but also kind of sad. Humans are messy and emotional, but that's also where we get our art and our love and our willingness to keep trying when everything looks hopeless." "Emotions make species weak," Zara said automatically, repeating what she had been taught since childhood. "They cloud judgment and lead to poor decisions." Jake was quiet for a moment, looking out at the stars. "Maybe," he said finally, "but they also give us reasons to make decisions in the first place. What's the point of perfect logic if you don't care about anything?" His words stayed with her long after he returned to his quarters for the night. Zara stood alone on the observation deck, watching Earth turn below, and wondered why a simple question from a primitive human had made her think about things she had never questioned before. The negotiations continued for 3 weeks. Every morning, Jake would arrive at the conference room with a smile and a cup of something he called coffee. The drink smelled strange to Zara, but she found herself looking forward to the rich, warm scent that filled the room when he entered. Their talks covered everything from trade routes to territorial boundaries. Jake had a way of solving problems that surprised Zara, where Altarian diplomats would spend days analyzing every possible outcome and hidden meaning. Jake would look at a problem and find a simple solution that worked for everyone. When they disagreed about mining rights in a disputed asteroid field, Jake suggested they take turns mining different sections on a schedule. When Zara pointed out that some asteroids might have more valuable minerals than others, Jake shrugged and said they could trade sections if one side got lucky. It was not the complex legal framework Zara would have expected, but it was fair and practical. "How do you know this will work?" Zara asked him one afternoon as they reviewed his latest proposal. "I don't," Jake admitted. "But most agreements fail because people try to think of every possible problem before they start. Sometimes you have to trust that reasonable people can work things out as they go." Trust. It was not a concept Altarians used much in their negotiations. They preferred detailed contracts with penalties for every possible violation. But Jake's approach seemed to work. The human delegation and Zara's advisors were making more progress in 3 weeks than she had expected to achieve in 3 months. Dr. Tall noticed the change in her mood during one of their regular medical checks. "Your stress levels are much lower than usual, Commander," he observed as he reviewed her readings. "The negotiations are going well?" "Better than expected," Zara said. She did not mention that she had been sleeping better and eating more. She also did not mention that she found herself thinking about Jake's questions and comments long after their meetings ended. One evening, as they worked late reviewing territorial maps in Zara's private quarters, Jake asked her about her life. "Before becoming a commander, I was trained for leadership from childhood," Zara said, spreading out a chart of the local star systems. "My family has served the Empire for 12 generations. It was always expected that I would follow the same path." "But what did you want to do?" Jake asked. He was sitting across from her at the small table, his sleeves rolled up and his tie loosened. It was the most relaxed she had ever seen him. The question caught her off guard. "Want?" she repeated. "Yeah. When you were young, before all the training and expectations, what did you dream about doing?" Zara stared at the star chart, remembering something she had not thought about in years. "I wanted to explore," she said quietly. "Not to conquer or negotiate, just to see what was out there. To meet new species and learn about different worlds." "That sounds amazing," Jake said. "Why didn't you do it?" "Because that is not what commanders do," Zara said. "We serve the Empire. We expand its influence and protect its interests. Personal desires are not important." Jake was quiet for a moment. "That's a shame," he said finally. "I think you would have been a great explorer." Something in his voice made Zara look up at him. He was watching her with those bright, curious eyes, and she felt that strange energy again, stronger than before. "What about you?" she asked, trying to change the subject. "Did you always want to be a diplomat?" Jake laughed. "Not even close. I wanted to be a farmer like my grandfather. He had a small farm in Iowa, grew corn and soybeans. I used to spend summers there, helping with the harvest. There was something peaceful about working with the land, watching things grow." "Then why did you not become a farmer?" "I'm not very good at it," Jake said with a grin. "Turns out I'm much better at talking to people than talking to plants. But I still have a small garden at home. Nothing fancy, just tomatoes and herbs. It reminds me of those summers with my grandfather." Zara tried to imagine Jake working in a garden, his hands dirty with soil, smiling at growing plants. The image was so different from the formal diplomats she usually dealt with that it made her smile too. "Your skin just changed color," Jake observed. Zara touched her cheek, realizing that her skin had shifted to a warm gold color. It was the shade that showed contentment and happiness, emotions she rarely felt during work. It happens when our emotions change, she explained. We cannot control it completely. That's incredible, Jake said. It's like wearing your heart on your sleeve, except it's your whole body. What color am I right now? Zara looked at him carefully. His brown skin did not change color, but his eyes were bright, and his expression was open and interested. Humans do not change color, she said. No, but we show emotions in other ways, Jake said. Like this. He smiled, and Zara noticed how the expression made his eyes crinkle at the corners. Or this. He leaned forward slightly, and she could see the genuine interest in his face. What emotion is that? Zara asked. Fascination, Jake said. You're the most interesting person I've ever met, Zara. And I don't mean because you're an alien. I mean because you're you. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. Altarians did not give personal compliments, especially not to their commanders. They showed respect through formal protocol and efficient service. But Jake's words made her feel something she had never experienced before. The next day, a solar storm hit the system. The charged particles made space travel dangerous, and Jake's transport ship had to remain docked with the stellar wind for several extra days. Zara found herself spending more time with him, showing him different parts of her ship and explaining how Altarian technology worked. Jake was amazed by everything. He asked questions about the crystal walls that could display any image, the gravity systems that could be adjusted for different species, and the hydroponics gardens that grew food during long space journeys. This is like the plants I grow at home, Jake said as they walked through the garden levels. Except about 1,000 times more advanced. It is simple technology, Zara said. We have been using it for centuries. Simple for you, maybe, Jake said, but it's still amazing. You're feeding hundreds of people at these gardens, and they're beautiful too. Look at how the lights change to match what each plant needs. Zara had walked through these gardens thousands of times, but seeing them through Jake's eyes made her notice things she had forgotten. A way the different colored lights created patterns on the walls. The peaceful sound of water moving through the growing systems. The fresh smell of growing things in the recycled air of the ship. I never really looked at it before, she admitted. That's because you see it every day, Jake said. Sometimes it takes an outsider to remind you how special something is. They spent the afternoon in the gardens, and Jake told her more stories about Earth. He described forests that covered entire continents, oceans that stretched beyond the horizon, and cities filled with millions of people from different cultures and backgrounds. It sounds chaotic, Zara said. It is, Jake agreed, but it's also beautiful. All those different people, different ideas, different ways of doing things. Sometimes they fight, but sometimes they create something amazing together. Altarians value order and efficiency, Zara said. We have eliminated most conflicts by ensuring everyone knows their role and follows it. But don't you ever wonder what you might be missing? Jake asked. What new ideas or solutions might come from letting people try different approaches? Zara did not answer immediately. She was thinking about his simple solutions to their negotiation problems, about the music he had played for her, created by someone who lived in poverty but made beauty anyway, about the way he looked at her gardens and saw wonder in something she had taken for granted. That evening, they had dinner together in her quarters. It was not an official meeting, just two people sharing a meal and talking. Jake told her about his family, his friends, his hopes for the future. Zara found herself telling him things she had never told anyone about her doubts, her loneliness, her secret wish that her life could be different. You could change it, Jake said quietly. After this mission, you could ask for a different assignment. You could explore instead of conquering. It is not that simple, Zara said. My people have expectations. My family has expectations. But what do you expect from yourself? Jake asked, Before Zara could answer, Jake reached across the table and gently touched her hand. The contact sent that strange energy through her again, but this time it did not feel like static electricity. It felt like something much more powerful and dangerous. "I should not," she whispered, but she did not pull her hand away. "Should not what?" Jake asked. "Feel this way," Zara said. "About you. About a human." Jake's thumb brushed across her knuckles. "How do you feel?" "Like I am alive for the first time in my life," Zara admitted. Jake stood up and walked around the table to where she sat. He knelt beside her chair and looked into her eyes. "Then maybe you should stop thinking about what you should not do, and start thinking about what you want to do." When he kissed her, Zara's skin erupted in colors she had never seen before. Waves of gold and silver and soft blue light rippled across her body. She felt like she was discovering a new part of herself, something that had been sleeping until this moment. 3 weeks after Jake returned to Earth, Zara knew something was wrong with her body. She had always been perfectly healthy, with a strong immune system and steady energy that all Altarians enjoyed. But now she felt tired in the mornings, and sometimes dizzy when she stood up too quickly. Her skin was acting strange too. Instead of the normal white, silver, and blue colors that showed her usual emotions, she kept displaying colors that had no meaning in Altarian understanding. Soft golds and gentle pinks would ripple across her arms and face for no reason. Sometimes her skin would pulse with a warm light that seemed to come from deep inside her. Dr. Tal noticed the changes during her regular medical examination. "Commander, your body chemistry is very unusual today," he said, studying the readings on his scanner. "Have you been under stress recently?" "No more than usual," Zara lied. She had been thinking about Jake constantly, replaying their conversations and remembering the way he had looked at her. The memory of their night together made her skin glow with those strange new colors, and she had to work hard to keep her expression neutral. "I would like to run some additional tests," Dr. Tal said. "Some of these readings are unlike anything I have seen before." Zara wanted to refuse, but she could not afford to appear weak in front of her crew. "Very well. Schedule them for tomorrow." That night, Zara stood in her quarters looking out at the stars and trying to understand what was happening to her. The night with Jake had changed something fundamental inside her. She felt like a different person, someone who cared about things beyond duty and efficiency, someone who could imagine a different kind of life. But she was a commander of the Altarian Empire. She had responsibilities and obligations that went back generations. Her moment of weakness with Jake had been a mistake, a temporary lapse in judgment that she needed to put behind her. The next morning, Dr. Tal ran his tests. Zara lay still on the medical table while scanners moved over her body, recording every detail of her biological functions. The doctor's expression grew more confused as he reviewed the results. "Commander, I need to run one more test," he said carefully. "This one will be more detailed." "Just do what you need to do," Zara said impatiently. She wanted to get back to her duties and stop thinking about the strange changes in her body. Dr. Tal ran the deep scan, and when he looked at the results, his skin flashed bright blue with shock. He stared at the scanner for a long time, then ran the test again. "Doctor?" Zara asked, sitting up on the table. "What is wrong?" Dr. Tal turned to face her, his skin still showing his amazement. "Commander, according to these scans, you are pregnant." Zara laughed. It was a sharp, bitter sound. "That is impossible. I have not mated with any Altarian male. Your equipment must be malfunctioning." "The equipment is working perfectly," Dr. Tal said quietly. "But you are correct that this should be impossible. The genetic material is not purely Altarian." Zara felt the blood drain from her face. "What do you mean?" "The child you are carrying appears to be a hybrid. Part Altarian, part something else. Based on the genetic markers I am seeing, I believe the other half is human. The room seemed to spin around Zara. She gripped the edges of the medical table and tried to breathe normally. That cannot be true. Altarians and humans are not genetically compatible. Our species are too different. I thought so too, Dr. Tal said, but the evidence is here in the scans. Somehow, you are carrying a human-Altarian hybrid child. Zara's mind raced back to that night with Jake, the energy she had felt when they touched, the way her skin had displayed colors she had never seen before. She had thought it was just the intensity of new emotions, but now she wondered if something deeper had been happening. "How is this possible?" she whispered. "I do not know," Dr. Tal admitted. "I will need to research this extensively. But, Commander, there are more immediate concerns. What do you want to do about the pregnancy?" Zara's first instinct was to end it immediately. A hybrid child would destroy her career, her reputation, everything she had worked for. The Altarian Empire had strict rules about genetic purity. Any officer who produced offspring with another species would face exile at best, execution at worst. Can it be terminated safely? She asked. Dr. Tal hesitated. That is complicated. The hybrid nature of the fetus makes standard procedures very dangerous. I am not sure our medical technology is designed to handle this situation. Any attempt to end the pregnancy could kill you both. Zara closed her eyes and tried to think. Clearly, she was trapped. She could not safely end the pregnancy, but she could not continue it either. When the Empire learned about this, she would lose everything. Who else knows about this? She asked. Only you and me, Dr. Tal said. But we cannot keep it secret for long. Your body will continue to change, and other crew members will notice. Over the next few days, Zara tried to continue her normal duties while her world fell apart around her. She found it hard to concentrate during meetings with her officers. Simple decisions that she would normally make quickly became difficult and confusing. The pregnancy was affecting her in ways she had not expected. Her emotions were stronger and more unpredictable than they had ever been. Sometimes she would feel overwhelmingly sad for no reason. Other times she would be filled with a fierce protectiveness that seemed to come from somewhere deep inside her. Worst of all, she could sense the child growing inside her. Unlike Altarian pregnancies, where the fetus remained dormant until birth, this hybrid child seemed aware and active. She could feel it responding to her emotions, almost like it was trying to comfort her when she was upset. A week after Dr. Tal's diagnosis, Zara received a message that made her blood run cold. The Altarian High Council had requested a full report on her negotiations with the humans. They wanted detailed biological scans of all crew members who had contact with the human delegation, including herself. The message was routine, the kind of health screening that happened after any first contact situation. But Zara knew that when they analyzed her scans, they would discover her secret. She had perhaps a few days before the truth came out. That night, she tried to contact Jake through the diplomatic channels they had established. His government told her that he was in meetings and would respond as soon as possible. Zara left a message asking him to call her urgently, but she could not explain the real reason without revealing everything to both their governments. Dr. Tal came to her quarters the next evening with more test results. The child's development is unlike anything in our medical records, he reported. It appears to be growing faster than a normal Altarian fetus, but with capabilities we do not understand. What kind of capabilities? Zara asked. The brain activity is extraordinary, Dr. Tal said. It shows patterns that suggest telepathic ability far beyond what we would expect from either species. A child may be able to communicate mentally with both humans and Altarians. Zara put her hand on her stomach, where she was just beginning to show signs of the pregnancy. The child inside her pulsed with warm energy, as if responding to her touch. "There is something else," Dr. Tall continued. "I have been researching the genetic compatibility between our species. What I found suggests that humans and Altarians may have a common evolutionary ancestor. That would explain how this pregnancy is possible." "What does that mean?" Zara asked. "It means that we may not be as different from humans as we believed. The child you are carrying could be proof that our species are more closely related than anyone imagined." Before Zara could respond, her communication panel chimed with an urgent message. She opened it and felt her heart sink. The High Council had moved up their timeline. They wanted her biological scans transmitted immediately, not in a few days. "Commander?" Dr. Tal asked, seeing her expression. "They know," Zara said quietly. "Somehow, they suspect something. The Council wants my medical records now." Dr. Tall's skin flashed pale with fear. "What will you do?" Zara looked out the window at the stars, thinking about Jake and the night that had changed everything. She thought about the child growing inside her, the impossible hybrid that might bridge the gap between two species. She thought about her duty to the Empire and her growing love for something that should not exist. "I do not know," she said finally, "but I will not let them destroy this child. Whatever it is, whatever it represents, it deserves a chance to live." The next morning, Zara made a decision that surprised even herself. Instead of transmitting her medical records to the High Council, she sent a message to Jake's government requesting an urgent private meeting. She did not know if he would come, or if he would still care about her after learning the truth. But for the first time since that night in her quarters, Zara felt like she had a choice in what happened next. The Empire had controlled her entire life, but the child inside her belonged to something bigger than political systems and species loyalty. It belonged to the future, and Zara was determined to protect that future, no matter what it cost her. Jake arrived on a fast human transport ship 2 days after receiving Zara's urgent message. He came alone, telling his government only that Commander Vex had requested a private meeting about sensitive diplomatic matters. When he walked into the same conference room where they had first met, Zara could see the worry in his eyes. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately, not bothering with formal greetings. "Your message said it was urgent." Zara had practiced what she would say, but no. That Jake was here, all her careful words disappeared. She looked at him standing there in his simple black suit, his hair still slightly messy, his eyes full of concern for her, and she felt her carefully controlled emotions crack. "I am pregnant," she said quietly. Jake's expression went through several changes very quickly. First confusion, then surprise, then something that might have been joy, before settling into serious concern. "Is it mine?" he asked. "Yes," Zara said. "According to our medical scans, the child is half human, half Altarian. Dr. Tall says it should be impossible, but the evidence is clear." Jake sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "How is that possible?" "I mean, we're different species. Our biology is completely different." "That is what we believe too," Zara said. She activated the wall display and showed him Dr. Tall's research. "But our medical officer has discovered something interesting. Humans and Altarians appear to share a common evolutionary ancestor. We are not as different as either of our species thought." Jake studied the genetic charts on the wall. Even though he was not a scientist, he could see the similarities Dr. Tall had highlighted. "This changes everything we know about both our species," he said slowly. "There is more," Zara continued. "The child appears to have abilities that neither of our species possess alone. Enhanced telepathic capabilities, accelerated development, and something our doctors are calling empathic bridging." "What does that mean?" "The child can somehow understand and communicate with both human and Altarian minds," Zara explained. It may be able to bridge the gap between our species in ways we never imagined possible. Jake was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. Then he looked up at Zara and asked the question she had been dreading. "What do you want to do about it?" "I do not know," Zara admitted. "My first thought was to end the pregnancy. A hybrid child will destroy my career and possibly my life. The Altarian Empire has strict laws about genetic purity. If they discover this, I will face exile or execution." "But?" Jake asked, hearing something in her voice. "But I can feel the child," Zara said, placing her hand on her stomach. "It responds to my emotions. It seems to know when I am sad or frightened, and it tries to comfort me. How can I destroy something that already cares about me?" Jake stood up and walked over to her. Carefully, he placed his hand over hers on her stomach. "May I?" Zara nodded, and Jake gently pressed his palm against her belly. Almost immediately, there was a pulse of warm energy, and both of them gasped. "Did you feel that?" Jake asked. "The child recognizes you," Zara whispered. "It knows you are its father." They stood there for a moment, both feeling the gentle movement of the hybrid child responding to its parents' presence. It was the most amazing and terrifying thing either of them had ever experienced. "There's something I need to tell you," Jake said finally. "Human scientists have been studying the biological samples we exchanged during the negotiations. They've made some discoveries that might be important." Zara looked up at him. "What kind of discoveries?" "They found the same genetic similarities." "Bet your doctor did." "But they also found something else. The samples suggest that human Altarian hybrids might be more than just possible. They might be a natural evolutionary step." "What do you mean?" Jake activated his own datapad and showed her research files from Earth. "Our scientists think that thousands of years ago, humans and Altarians might have been the same species. We evolved on different worlds, but we kept the genetic compatibility. The hybrid children might have abilities that both parent species need to survive in the galaxy." Zara stared at the research data. "Both our governments know about this?" "Some of it," Jake said carefully. "But they don't know about us. They don't know about the baby." "They will soon," Zara said. "The High Council has demanded my medical records. When they see the scans, they will know everything." Jake's expression became grim. "What will they do?" "They will order the pregnancy terminated and me executed for contaminating Altarian genetic lines," Zara said simply. "Unless I can find a way to escape before they arrive." "Then we run," Jake said immediately. "We?" Zara asked. "You think I'm going to let you face this alone?" Jake took her hands in his. "This is my child too. If your people want to hurt you, or the baby, they'll have to go through me first." Before Zara could respond, Dr. Tall's voice came over the communication system. "Commander, we have a problem. 3 Altarian battle cruisers just dropped out of hyperspace. They are requesting immediate boarding permission." Zara's skin flashed pale with fear. "The High Council sent a military escort. They must suspect something." "How long do we have?" Jake asked. "Perhaps an hour before they board," Zara said. "After that, there will be nowhere to run." Jake was already moving toward the door. "Then we leave now. Do you have a ship that can outrun those cruisers?" "No," Zara said, "but I know someone who might help us." She led Jake through the corridors of the stellar wind to Dr. Tall's medical bay. The doctor was there waiting for them, his skin showing the deep blue of anxiety. "Dr. Tall," Zara said, "I need you to make a choice. You can follow your oath to the Empire, or you can help me protect this child." Dr. Tall looked at the scans on his medical monitors, showing the impossible hybrid developing in Zara's womb. "Commander, what you are carrying could change the future of both our species. The Empire would destroy it out of fear, but that would be a terrible mistake." "Will you help us?" Zara asked. "Yes," Dr. Tal said without hesitation. "There is an emergency medical transport in Bay 7. It is fast and has advanced stealth systems. I can create false medical records showing that you died in an accident, buying you time to escape." "What about you?" Jake asked. "Won't they punish you for helping us?" "Probably," Dr. Tal said. "But some things are more important than personal safety. This child represents hope for a future where our species can work together instead of competing for resources and territory." They moved quickly through the ship toward the transport bay. Zara gathered a few personal items and medical supplies while Jake contacted his government to arrange a safe meeting place. Dr. Tal prepared the transport ship and uploaded false records into the ship's computer system as they reached the transport bay. Alarms began sounding throughout the stellar wind. The Altarian battle cruisers were beginning their approach for boarding. "They are moving faster than expected," Dr. Tal said, checking his monitors. "You have perhaps 10 minutes before they dock." Zara turned to face her medical officer, knowing this might be the last time she saw him. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "Take care of that child," Dr. Tal said. "It may be the key to peace between our peoples." Jake and Zara boarded the small transport ship. As the engines powered up, Zara looked back at the stellar wind through the viewport. She had spent most of her adult life on that ship, serving the Empire with absolute loyalty. Now she was leaving it all behind for a future she could not even imagine. "Are you sure about this?" Jake asked as he took the pilot's seat. Zara placed her hand on her stomach again, feeling the warm pulse of the child within her. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." The transport ship slipped away from the stellar wind just as the first Altarian boarding shuttles arrived. Behind them, Zara could see the battle cruisers moving into formation around her. Former command. Ahead of them lay the unknown, dangerous, and full of possibilities as they jumped into hyperspace. Zara felt the child move inside her, almost as if it was excited about the adventure beginning. For the first time since discovering her pregnancy, she smiled. Whatever happened next, she and Jake would face it together. The child they carried might be impossible, but it was also proof that some barriers were meant to be broken. And Zara was ready to break a few more barriers to protect the future growing inside her. 6 months later, Helena Morrison Vex was born on a small medical station in neutral space, far from both Earth and the Altarian Empire. The birth was unlike anything the station's doctors had ever seen. As soon as Helena entered the world, her skin glowed with soft colors that shifted between human warmth and Altarian light patterns. Jake held his daughter for the first time and felt tears running down his face. She was perfect, with Zara's elegant features and his own curious eyes. When she looked at him, he could feel her thoughts touching his mind like gentle whispers. "She is trying to communicate," Zara said weakly from the medical bed. The birth had been difficult, but both mother and child were healthy. "I can sense her emotions. She is not afraid. She is curious about everything." Dr. Tal, who had joined them in exile, ran his scanners over the newborn. "Her brain activity is extraordinary," he reported. "She appears to be processing information at a rate far beyond what either species achieves at birth." Elena made soft sounds that seemed almost like words. When Jake spoke to her in English, her skin showed warm golden colors. When Zara spoke in Altarian, the same golden glow appeared, but with silver patterns that matched the musical rhythm of the language. "She understands both languages already," Jake said in wonder. "More than that," Zara said, reaching out to touch her daughter's tiny hand. "She understands the emotions behind the words. She knows we love her." The first few weeks were challenging. Both human and Altarian governments were searching for them. Jake's people wanted to study the child to understand the genetic compatibility. The Altarian Empire wanted to destroy all evidence of what they saw as genetic contamination. But Elena's remarkable abilities soon caught the attention of others. Dr. Tal had secretly sent copies of her medical data to scientists on both sides, hoping that knowledge of her potential would overcome political fear. The breakthrough came when Elena was 2 months old. A diplomatic crisis had erupted between humans and another alien species called the Keth over mining rights in a disputed system. The negotiations had failed completely, and both sides were preparing for war. Elena, lying in her crib nearby whilst Jake and Zara discussed the news, suddenly began making urgent sounds. Her skin flashed with patterns that neither parent had seen before, and she seemed to be trying to communicate something important. "What is she trying to tell us?" Jake asked. Picking up his daughter Dot as soon as Jake held her, Elena's thoughts touched his mind with images and emotions. She was showing him the Keth, but not as the angry, hostile aliens from the news reports. She saw them as frightened beings protecting their young, just like human and Altarian parents would do. "She can sense their emotions across space," Zara sighed, amazed. "She is showing us what the Keth are really feeling." Inspired by Elena's insight, Jake contacted his former colleagues in the diplomatic service. He suggested a new approach to the negotiations based on what Elena had revealed about Keth motivations. Instead of focusing on territorial rights, they should address the Keth's concerns about protecting their offspring. The strategy worked. Within a week, a peaceful agreement was reached that satisfied both sides. News of the successful negotiations spread quickly, and both human and Altarian leaders began asking questions about the source of the breakthrough. Insights. Dr. Tal decided it was time to reveal the truth. He published a detailed scientific paper about Elena's abilities, showing how human Altarian hybrids could bridge communication gaps between species. The paper included video evidence of Elena's remarkable empathic abilities and her potential for solving interspecies conflicts. Reaction was immediate and powerful. Scientists from dozens of worlds demanded to meet Elena and study her abilities. Political leaders began to see the potential for a new kind of diplomacy based on emotional understanding rather than military threats. But not everyone was pleased. Altarian military forces increased their search efforts, and some human factions saw Elena as a threat to human independence. Jake and Zara had to move constantly to stay ahead of those who would harm their daughter. The turning point came when Elena was 6 months old. A massive conflict erupted between the Altarian Empire and a coalition of 3 other species. The war threatened to spread across the entire sector, potentially killing billions of beings. Elena, now able to sit up and make more complex sounds, seemed deeply distressed by the violence. Her skin flashed with dark, troubled colors, and she cried in a way that made both her parents feel the pain of every being affected by the war. "She can sense all the suffering," Zara said, holding her daughter close. "The fear, the anger, the grief. It is overwhelming her." Jake made a decision that surprised even himself. "We have to stop hiding," he said. "Elena's abilities could end this war, but only if the leaders of all these species can see what she really is." "It is too dangerous," Zara protested. "They will take her away from us, or worse." "Maybe," Jake said. "But if we don't try, how many more people will die?" Elena was born to bring species together, not to hide in the shadows. They contacted leaders from all the warring factions, offering Elena's abilities as a neutral mediator. Most refused to listen, but one Altarian admiral and one human general agreed to meet. The meeting took place on the same neutral medical station where Elena had been born. When the military leaders arrived, they expected to see some kind of advanced technology or secret weapon. Instead, they found a 6-month-old baby playing with simple toys. "This is what you brought us here for?" the Altarian admiral demanded. "A hybrid child?" Watch, Jake said simply. Elena looked up at the two military officers and began making her soft musical sounds. Her skin glowed with gentle colors as she reached out toward them with tiny hands. Both officers felt something they had not experienced in years of warfare. The admiral felt Elena's innocent curiosity about his culture and his people. She did not see him as an enemy, but as someone interesting to learn about. The human general felt Elena's deep sadness about the fighting, not as criticism, but as genuine concern for everyone who is being hurt. She is reading our emotions, the admiral said quietly. But more than that, she is helping us understand each other's emotions. For the first time in months of conflict, the two officers began talking to each other instead of at each other. With Elena's empathic abilities helping them understand each other's true concerns, they found solutions that had been impossible before. Within days, other leaders requested meetings with Elena. Her ability to help different species understand each other's emotional motivations made negotiations faster and more effective than anyone had believed possible. The war ended not with victory or defeat, but with a series of agreements that addressed the real needs and fears of all the involved species. Elena had become the galaxy's youngest and most effective diplomat. As news of Elena's role in ending the war spread, public opinion began to shift. Instead of seeing her as a dangerous hybrid, people began viewing her as a symbol of hope for peaceful cooperation between species. The Altarian Empire officially dropped all charges against Zara and declared Elena a special cultural ambassador. Earth's government offered Jake a new position as head of interspecies relations. With Elena as his unofficial advisor, Jake and Zara established a new home on the medical station, which was expanded into the galaxy's first interspecies diplomatic center. Elena grew up surrounded by beings from dozens of different worlds, learning their languages and customs with the same ease that other children learned to walk. By her second birthday, Elena could communicate telepathically with Altarians, while speaking fluently in 5 human languages. She could sense the emotional needs of Keth warriors and calm the aggressive instincts of Thorian traders. Her presence at diplomatic meetings had become so valuable that conflicts were often scheduled around her nap times. Zara, watching her daughter play with children from 6 different species, often thought about the night she had dismissed the idea of mating with a human. That moment of prejudice seemed like it had happened to someone else entirely. Do you ever regret it? Jake asked one evening as they watched Elena teach a young Altarian how to laugh like a human child. Regret what? Zara asked. Giving up your command, your career, everything you worked for. Zara looked at Elena, who was now glowing with happy golden light as she played with her friends. I did not give up anything, she said. I found something I never knew I was missing. Elena looked up at her parents and sent them a pulse of pure love and contentment that made both of them smile. In that moment, they knew that their impossible daughter had not just changed their lives. She had changed the galaxy, one heart at a time.